The air conditioner's gentle hum in my workspace stood out sharply from the whirlwind of ideas racing through my head. I'm a lawyer named Anna, and I'm 28 years old. It's a far way from the chaos of my early years, a past I even kept hidden from my closest friends and family. The calmness of the ringing shattered my office. On my phone, the screen revealed an indeterminate quantity, but something about it felt unsettlingly similar to a cautious hand. I spoke in response. I spoke up. Speak with a combination of expertise and Anna. Be careful. Your father has arrived. There was an anxiousness in the voice that didn't do anything to stop my rising fear. A shiver went through me. More than 10 years have passed since I last heard that voice. A once meaningful voice, loving care, but has turned into a symbol of grief and betrayal. Why are you contacting me? I asked to speak for myself, severing with precision. During the quiet that ensued after his first things first, I'm having problems. Anna, I need financial assistance from you. He mentioned, his voice breaking somewhat his request, even though it maybe started a fire of bitterness within of me. My contribution now I shot back after all these years. Belief and rage coexisted in my tone. To be sure, but if it weren't, I'm in a real pickle. Continuing Ed's deteriorating, desperate state. His voice, you've long since ceased to be my father. You can't just phone me right now, and you may count on my assistance, I answered vocally. Chilly, and there was a steady pause on the line. A thick stillness that resembled an irreconcilable divide. Anna, please, I'm still. Your father made a pathetic attempt to renewing an old friendship. Putting out the word dad felt strange, almost startling. A father, you lost that title, I remarked when you chose her over me. The years of grief and resentment being incorporated into my speech. I believed you were mistaken, my daughter. I spoke up and stopped him. Halfway through, you made your decision years. His voice was years ago, and now that I've made mine, a mixture of desperation and begging. Hello, Anna? I'm sorry, but I need your help once. I'm sorry reverberated through my office like a hollow and pointless apologies don't alter historical events. I'm unable to assist you. Declared forcefully and disconnected my childhood. Before the age of 10, I was occupied with laughter and love are evidence of I had a fantastic existence with my parents. Within our modest rental home, my mom ray of happiness and compassion lit our warm days. And our evenings with tales and dreams. My dad used to be silly, and an understanding man would play all night, playing games or giving me small lessons. The world's things, our house was a happy cocoon where each day was an exploration, and each evening a lovely dream. But our comfortable existence came to an end. Sudden end following my mother's premature. The mansion that used to resound with death, love, and laughter became quiet. A portion of recollections. I strolled through the rooms. Every nook serves as a sharp reminder of it was an awful loss without her. Not only for myself, but also for my dad, who, having lost his beloved life, yet the intensity of his sorrow appeared to decline swiftly. Much to my confusion and shock, in a matter of months later, he brought Marissa, a woman, home, who was going to play a big part in our life. I remember the moment he brought. A day that signified the conclusion of my treasured childhood. Anna, this is Marissa. She intends to remain with one evening, my father declared, his voice lacking the warmth that I so. I looked up at her, accustomed to this, looking for a little maternal warmth. But discovered none in her. Her towering appearance, her icy stare, and starting at the very beginning, noticed a difference in the atmosphere. One that gave me an inexplicable feeling of fearful hello. Anna, Marissa called out. Silky but lacking in a genuine sense. The smile seemed to soothe rather than conceal a terrible element behind its reveal themselves. In the days that followed, the home seemed altered, as though the walls, they were pulling away from her presence. The happy recollections of the time appeared to slip away, giving way to a persistent discomfort that permeated every corner. I recall glancing at Marissa, searching for a redeeming thing or thoughtful of her, yet her appearance, The motion appeared to contain an unsaid hatred. It was evident that she wasn't keen to take up the space left by my mother. Nonetheless, to create a new story in which I was an awkward aspect of her that I observed. Stroll around our house, which used to felt content and safe. I was unable to assist, however, felt as though her coming was only the start of a particular thing. Unsettling, the way she gazed at me with eyes with a tendency to conceal more than they revealed was not encouraging for the future. The time after Marissa's arrivals resembled strolling via a nightmare from which I was unable to awaken. There was a time when my mother's love and laughter felt chilly now. Marissa's unwelcome presence created a shadow covering all that, transforming even the easiest daily schedules into a sequence of battles. While having breakfast one morning, my dinner seemed abnormally salty, I noted. "Marissa, did you over-season it with salt?" This, my voice inquired. Hesitant, did I? "It has to be an error, Anna. Eat it, don't be so picky," she shot back, her voice disdainful. Nearly jesting, the occurrences increased in frequency. Additionally resentful, I recall discovering my clothes destroyed following a laundry. "Marissa, all of my clothing is faded," the question I posed one day, displaying my old favorite outfit, now stained and unfit. She took a quick look at it, and, with a shrug casually, "Perhaps the washing machine is misbehaving, or maybe it's time you give up wearing such juvenile attire." Garments, a wave of annoyance swept through me, but further arguments would exacerbate the situation. Worse, I felt powerless and resorted to my father, expecting him to be able to look past her. "Marissa, the fixad dad, is destroying my stuff. She mistreats me every time." One, I said. Evening, trembling with a combination of fury, and my dad's response was rather, compared to my expectations, "Anna, you're thinking that Marissa is abusing her to assimilate into our family and cease causing problems," he stated sharply, his remarks cutting deep. "But that's the reality, Dad." Protest attempt, but he refused to listen. "Anna, that's enough. I'm not interested in to hear your allegations repeated," said, his voice erupting with rage at each day was difficult to traverse. Concerning Marissa's animosity and my dad's apathy toward the place that previously felt like home, I felt like a jail instead of a haven. I began to spend more time in my chamber, attempting to get away from the ongoing stress that was suspended in the air residing in that scary mansion. I felt isolated and misinterpreted the security and contentment that previously occupied those walls were in place of dread and worry daily. I yearned for the days gone by, for the occasions when my mom's grin was sufficient to illuminate the entire space. Striking contrast with the current gloom lurked around every corner, coexisting alongside. Marissa turned into a daily struggle to avoid. Additionally, perseverance, her hatred for me grew from insults to physical attacks, torture. It began with a gentle pinch on my arm or a twist in my abdomen every time. In areas that are readily hidden beneath my garments, the hurt was brutal and intense. A prompting of my powerlessness in her presence, I devised plans to stay away from. She is aware of her location at all times. I used to drive vast distances inside the house to hold off till she is in another room. Before, despite my best efforts, I moved around. Sometimes, I was taken off guard by her. And those instances invariably led to experiencing any discomfort. One day when I was reading in silence in the living room, when Marissa entered, there was no apparent reason to pinch my arm firmly using her nails. I winced in agony as it dug into my skin, but suppressed any cries of protest. She gave me a chilly glance, a victorious grin before moving away on one of Grandma's infrequent visits. She observed my circumspect moves and how I recoiled at the sound of Marissa's voice. "Anna is resonating throughout the home." "Grandma, everything is well at home?" questioned, a worried tone in her voice. I stared at her, wanting to tell her so badly the truth to her, but fear and the need to. I restrained myself so as not to cause her anxiety. "Yes, Grandma, I'm back. Everything is all right," I told her I had a lot of schoolwork, but I wasn't using a fake smile. She appeared uncertain, yet didn't push any harder. I experienced a touch of shame for tricking her. Yet I was unable to bear the idea of upsetting her in any way. Dismay that night and grandmother departed. I noticed Marissa observing her through the glass. Expression of contentment it was as if she had enjoyed knowing that she influenced me. I would have suffered harm, and succeeded in doing so. Her victorious expression strongly indicated she was the one in charge, and I was utterly defenseless. Participant in her twisted game, I felt like going back to my room, enmeshed in a vicious cycle of silence and cruelty. The actual discomfort caused by Marissa's pinches and turns were tolerable in contrast to the mental chaos. I thought of school as my haven, a place where I might momentarily forget the suffering of my domestic life. However, even there, the outlines of my problems at home started to come through. Mrs. Thompson, my instructor, is a good-hearted person. A woman who constantly gave her students encouragement. One day, I began to detect changes in myself. When I turned in my homework, she firmly gripped my wrist while focusing on my arm's bruises. "What, Anna?" occurred here. These resemble bruises. She claimed that worry was in her voice. I swiftly retracted my arm, enveloping my sleeve is bruised. "Nothing at all, Mrs. Thompson." I collapsed. I pretended to be lying while dodging her stare. Mrs. Thompson averted her gaze. Persuaded Anna, should there be any incorrect, or if someone is harming you, can inform me of the significance of speaking up. She asked her eyes to look for the reality that I desire to reveal to her, give her all the details regarding Marissa and how I was always afraid. Yet the words failed to flow, so I pushed "I'm all right, Mrs. Thompson," honestly grinned. It was only a careless mishap. She presented me with a long, introspective glance, followed by a nod gradually. "Okay, Anna, but keep in mind the door is never closed. You're not by yourself," remarked, smiling consolingly at me. I nodded as a knot started to grow in my throat. Her generosity added to it, challenging to keep up the facade that everything went smoothly. As I particular day, Mrs. Thompson's walk home, phrases replayed in my head. I experienced a mixture of appreciation for her thoughtfulness and a sincere the feeling of isolation brought on by bearing my burdens by itself. The idea of disclosing the reality. At home, my existence was horrifying, and I worried about the outcomes. What Marissa would do if she became aware of it had mentioned. I was silent that evening, having supper with someone. Pondering Mrs. Thompson's words, offered to assist Marissa when I became speechless. "Why is everyone quiet tonight? Anna Kitty received your tongue?" she questioned mockingly. I just shook my head and carried on with my meal, attempting to minimize my sighs and imperceptible as possibilities while I lay in bed after supper. The truth of my circumstances felt more and more than ever formidable. Mrs. Thompson's concern had convinced me that individuals the problem, but the dread of what exposes them maybe the truth prevented me from speaking. I was between the desperate need to communicate someone and Marissa's fear of it takes balance to retaliate. I traversed daily the day my instructor, Mrs. Thompson, chose to include me in Father's Day was a day full of stress and fear for me. In the principal's office, I twitching uncomfortably, my thoughts frantically worrying about how my father would respond if he ever made it to his stern face revealed a mixture of annoyance and humiliation. "What's up with Anna? Are you calling me to come to your school?" With a strong voice, he demanded this. He entered. My eyes slid to Mrs. Thompson. Looking for some reassurance, I swallowed hard and searched for my voice. Dad and Mrs. Thompson observed what she saw. "Bruises," I stumbled, sensing the burden of his stare before I could respond. Moreover, he suppressed his rage. "Tangible. What are you talking about, bruises? Once more, you are inventing stories." Mrs. Thompson intervened, speaking sternly, yet composed. "Mr. Smith, I'm worried about Anna's condition, and the bruises on her arm do not appear unintentional, which needs to be addressed." My father's expression darkened slightly with anger. At home, she is pretty safe. Anna, are you misrepresenting our family? Turning to face me, he looked disappointed. Let loose the tears I'd been holding in, began to leak. Dad, it's not a lie. Marissa has been injuring me. I was able to exit the truth at last emerging. His response was one of complete Marissa. It's unbelief that's absurd. She has only shown kindness. I will not allow you to accuse her in your eyes. Using these charges, but the facts are actual, Dad. Called out, pleading with him to accept it. With a start, he got up, his patient. Tell Mrs. that you're wearing this too thin. Thompson, all of that was made up. I dutifully faced the instructor and reiterated his. She nodded again without speaking. Anything while returning home empty-handed, said another way. He kept me trapped in my room. Using the door, I could perceive Marissa's voice brimming with deceptive worry. I told you that she's only looking for. I sat on my bed, she added, paying attention. Having a strong sense of loneliness and sorrow at the one person I believed I could guarantee that he had turned the walls of my room, which are facing me, had previously seemed to be my haven, but now I lay there feeling like I was inside a prison. There, reflecting on all that had occurred as a result of the physical abuse's suffering, was insignificant in contrast to the emotional, the agony of not being believed, and my father punished me. It was a severe understanding that the individual who was meant to adore and guard me unwaveringly was now the origin of my deepest agony in the days after my confinement. Among the darkest were those in my chamber. Had already felt imprisoned entirely and helpless. I realized that my only chance lay. On my mother's side, my granny was a compassionate and loving woman with always been kind to me, but I never thought to bother her with my problems one night at home while I was my father and Marissa had their hands full. I plucked up the bravery to give I was shaking my hands, Grandma, as I dialed her phone number. Hi, her reassuringly warm voice said. Over the phone. Anna here, Grandma. Stated, attempting to maintain a steady tone. Anna, how are you, my love? She questioned her style. Tears filled with sincere concern welled up. When I answered, Grandma, I need in my eyes. I would like to remain with you for although there was a brief period of stillness on what went wrong with Anna on the other end, I had an experience. Therefore, I took a deep breath, words flying out of my mouth. It's Marissa has harmed Mom and Dad. Won't accept me. I am still trying to figure out what to do. Her voice carried concern, which I could perceive as. She answered right away, of course, my love. You immediately approach. I will attend to. The day my grandmother arrived was this one. Even though she was little, her presence filled the space. She faced my dad with a strength that took me by surprise. John, Anna isn't coming with me. Safe here, she proclaimed. With firmness, my father retreated and attempted to Mom. You can't just take her, I argue. She's your daughter, mine, and you unable to defend, she retorted. Acerbic, I refused to observe her. Marissa attempted to step in, but she's merely a kid inventing tales. You are unable to have faith in her instead of us. Grandma looked at Marissa's gaze. Steely, I can tell when a child is afraid. I'm bringing one, Anna, and if you attempt to halt me, I'll take this issue up with the officials. My father became aware that he was beaten and gave up trying to fight back. Opposition when I grabbed my belongings, I noticed. Marissa went from having a stubborn expression to overcoming. Stepping outside the home with my grandmother, I had a release of weight. Shoulders. I felt safe for the first time in months. It was a calm drive to Grandma's house, although her existence was consoling. When we got there, she turned to me and told me, Anna, you're secure now. I'm no longer concerned about my grandmother's home. I experienced the affection and protection that had been absent from my life serve as a haven for my healing, and used the contrast to regain my strength. Between her nourishing house and my father's home was glaringly cold. First time in a very long time. Sensed that my breathing had returned. Escaped the worry and fear that had troubled me. It had been years since I had gone to reside at my father's house with my granny. the place she'd lived in sanctuary, a haven of love and healing. But time has moved on, and with it created a fresh wave of transformation in my cherished grandma departed, leaving a gap that seems impossible at the funeral that Marissa and my father attended. Their features, a mixture of fake sadness and ill-dressed zeal. It was apparent they were more interested in the potential benefits of rather than lamenting her death. Morning following the funeral, as we assembled at Marissa, I wasted no time at my grandmother's house. Timing nicely, Anna. I assume you'll be finding a new place to live now. House and everything in it belongs to your father now, she said in her voice, tinted with a barely concealed glee. My father nodded in accord, eyes surveying the room as if already planning what to do with the house. Couldn't help but smile, a reaction that seemed to confuse them. Actually, that's where you're wrong, I said, the confidence in my voice taking them by surprise. What do you mean, my father inquired, his visage turning to one of bewilderment. I took a long breath, enjoying the moment. Grandma left a will. She bequeathed the house and a considerable amount of money to me, I explained, observing as their expressions altered from bewilderment to startled. But you're just a child. I'm your father. I should be in charge of the inheritance you receive. My father sputtered, his sense of entitlement evident. Marissa chimed in, her voice shrilly stating, until you come of age, your father will handle your property well. Prospects, their reactions were almost amusing. You don't care about me so much that you didn't even wish me a happy day. I turned 18 a month ago. I'm legally an adult now, and I make my own decisions, I stated firmly, relishing the face of awareness dawning on their fronts. My father's expression shifted from shock to rage, then to a sort of desperate pleading. Anna, you can't do this. Is your family? I glanced at their memories of my childhood flooding back. You paused. Being my family a long time ago, I remarked, my voice is steady. Marissa stepped forward, her tone now imploring, at least let us stay in the house. We have nowhere else to go. We have not extended the lease of our residence. I shook my head. This is my house currently. You'll need to find somewhere else. As they left, the weight of years of pain and neglect appeared to lift my shoulders. I stood in the house that was as mine, a place loaded with memories of my grandmother's love, and felt a sense of closure. The echoes of the past, my father's call stirred, remained. I sat their phone in hand sensation, a tumult of feelings, wrath, betrayal, and a sense of injustice. But amid all that, there was also a sense of strength and a reminder of the resilience that had carried me through the depths of times.